Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 29. 3 months ago, I was just another broke freelancer riding the late bus home every night, watching this elegant married woman in silk and gold who never looked up from her phone. Then one Wednesday, she ran onto the bus out of breath, grabbed my wrist so tight I could feel her pulse, and whispered, "Pretend we know each other." I smelled citrus and vanilla. I saw the fear in her eyes and the diamond on her finger, and I heard myself ask, "How close?" She didn't let go for 3 stops. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I sat in the same seat every night. Back left, 2 rows from the emergency exit, close enough to the door that I could get off fast when my stop came, far enough from the front that Marco, the driver, didn't try to make conversation beyond the usual nod. 10:45 p.m., same bus, same route, 5 nights a week, sometimes 6. I was 29 and broke and tired, riding home from whatever cafe or library had the best Wi-Fi that day. Freelance web design doesn't come with an office. It doesn't come with much of anything except tight deadlines and tighter budgets. The bus cut through the city in a way that felt almost cruel. First, it rolled through the gated neighborhoods where the houses had 3-car garages and motion sensor lights, where the lawns were perfect even in winter. Then it crossed the river, literally and figuratively, into my side of town, where the streetlights flickered, where my apartment building had a front door that didn't lock right, and a landlord who texted me every month about this month's plan. I'd been riding this route for 3 months, and for 2 of those months I'd been watching her. She boarded at stop 12, the one right outside the gated community with the marble lions at the entrance, always around 11 p.m., always alone. I started calling her the Queen of Stop 12 in my head. She was black, mid-40s maybe, with this kind of elegance that didn't need effort. Some nights her hair was in neat braids. Other nights it was straightened and fell past her shoulders. She wore silk blouses and tailored coats and gold bracelets that caught the fluorescent light every time she moved. And the ring. God, that ring was impossible to miss. Big diamond, the kind that screamed married to someone important. She never looked up from her phone, never made eye contact with anyone. Just found a seat somewhere in the middle, crossed her legs, and existed in her own sealed-off bubble until her stop came. I wondered about her constantly. What was someone like her doing on the late bus? Where was the driver? The luxury car? The husband who could probably buy this entire bus route if he wanted? I never asked, obviously. You don't talk to women like that. Women who look like they stepped out of a magazine spread about power couples or philanthropy galas. Women who existed in a completely different atmosphere than guys like me. Marco noticed her, too. One night he caught my eye in the rearview mirror and grinned. "You work later than the doctors, Ethan," I shrugged. "Bills don't pay themselves." "Neither does watching, my friend." I felt my face heat up. "I'm not—" "Relax." He laughed, low and knowing. "Everyone watches beautiful women on the bus. Just don't be creepy about it." I wasn't being creepy. At least I didn't think I was. I just noticed her. The way you notice something out of place, something that doesn't fit the pattern. Then, one Wednesday night in late November, the pattern broke. I was in my usual seat, headphones on but no music playing. Laptop bag beside me. The bus was emptier than usual, just a teenager near the front scrolling his phone, and an older woman asleep a few rows up. We pulled up to stop 12. The doors hissed open. Nobody got on. Marco waited a few extra seconds, checking his mirrors. I found myself leaning forward slightly, looking out the window. And then I saw her, running. Not jogging, not walking fast, full on running in heels, her coat flapping behind her, one hand clutching her purse and the other holding her phone. She kept looking back over her shoulder, My stomach tightened. Something was wrong. The bus started to roll forward. She waved her arm frantically. Marco saw her and stopped, opening the doors again. She stumbled up the steps, breathing hard. Her silk blouse was slightly untucked. A few strands of hair had escaped from her usually perfect style. And her eyes. Her eyes were scared. She scanned the bus quickly. Teenager, sleeping woman, me, and then she looked past Marco toward the sidewalk. I followed her gaze. A man in a dark suit stood at the curb. Tall, white, early 50s maybe. His posture was rigid, his expression unreadable. He took a step toward the bus, then paused. He was looking right at her. My chest went tight. Then she moved, straight toward me, fast. Before I could process what was happening, she grabbed my wrist. Her hand was trembling. Her perfume hit me like a wave. Citrus and vanilla, clean and expensive. She leaned in close enough that I felt her breath against my ear. Pretend we know each other. My brain short-circuited. The words came out before I could stop them. How close? She pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. Hers were dark brown, wide, desperate. And behind that desperation was something else. A question. How far are you willing to go? The bus doors hissed shut. The man outside took another step forward, his hand rising as if to knock on the glass. Then the bus pulled away from the curb, and he just stood there, watching us roll into the night. She didn't let go of my wrist. Not yet. Her pulse hammered against my skin, or maybe that was mine. I couldn't tell anymore. Just talk, she whispered. Act annoyed, like I forgot to pay the rent again. I blinked. What? Please. There was something in her voice that made it impossible to say no. So I improvised. You said you'd transfer it Tuesday. My voice came out rougher than I expected. Monique, come on. The landlord's already texted me twice. She caught on immediately. I know, I'm sorry. The board meeting ran late, and I forgot to. You always forget. I don't always forget. Last month was different. We went back and forth like that. A fake argument that probably sounded real to anyone listening. She played the role perfectly. Apologetic but defensive, tired but sharp. Marco watched us in his rearview mirror. His eyebrows rose slowly. He'd never seen us speak before. Hell, I'd never spoken to her before. The teenager got off at the next stop. The older woman kept sleeping. The bus rolled on through the dark city, its engine humming beneath us like a heartbeat. Monique kept glancing toward the back window, checking for headlights, checking to see if the man, or someone else, was following. After 3 more stops, she finally relaxed. Her grip on my wrist loosened. She let out a long, shaky breath. Thank you. I looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time outside of stolen glances. Up close, she was even more beautiful. But it was the kind of beauty that came with weight. Tired eyes, a tightness around her mouth that suggested she smiled more than she wanted to. Who was that? I asked quietly. My husband's driver. My stomach dropped. Your husband? Yes. And he sent someone to... No. She shook her head quickly. David doesn't know. That's the problem. I wanted to ask more. Every question in my brain was fighting to get out at once. But she was already standing. This is my stop. I looked out the window. We were nowhere near her neighborhood. This was a commercial district. Closed storefronts, empty parking lots. You live here? No, but I can walk from here. She adjusted her coat, smoothing the wrinkles. It's safer if my husband thinks I'm with someone familiar. But we're not. I know. She met my eyes again. Thank you, Ethan. My blood went cold. How do you know my name? She smiled, just barely. You're on the hospital's vendor list, web designer. David mentioned a young guy doing the website. I recognized you from the bus. The hospital? Of course, I'd been freelancing for them for 2 months. Small contract, updating their public-facing site. It was the biggest job I'd ever landed, and I was terrified of screwing it up. And now this woman, this married woman whose husband apparently had drivers and influence and God knows what else, knew exactly who I was. She stepped past me toward the door. The bus slowed. Wait, I said. She paused. What do I do if... Nothing. Her voice was firm. You do nothing. We don't know each other. This didn't happen. The doors opened. She stepped down onto the dark sidewalk. I watched her walk away until the bus turned a corner and she disappeared. When I got home an hour later, I emptied my pockets onto the kitchen counter. Keys, wallet, loose change, my phone, and a business card I didn't remember her slipping in. Cream-colored, heavy stock. Elegant black text. Monique Harris King Harris Foundation. On the back, in handwriting that was somehow both careful and rushed. Call me about a project. I stood there in my tiny, cluttered kitchen. Overdue bills stacked beside the sink. The fridge humming too loud. My ancient couch visible through the doorway. And stared at that card. This woman wasn't just rich. She was Harris King rich. Foundation money. Board member money. The kind of money that came with marble houses and charity galas and husbands who sent drivers to track your movements. And she'd just handed me an invitation. I should have thrown the card away. I should have pretended the whole thing never happened, just like she said. But I didn't. Because when I closed my eyes, I could still feel her hand trembling against my wrist. Could still smell citrus and vanilla. Could still hear the desperation in her voice when she'd whispered, "Pretend we know each other." She'd been scared. Really scared. And for some reason, she'd chosen me. I woke up late the next morning on my sagging couch. The TV was still on, playing some infomercial I'd fallen asleep to. My neck hurt from the angle. The business card sat on the coffee table next to a stack of bills I couldn't pay yet. Yo. Jamal's voice made me jump. He was standing in the kitchen doorway, already dressed for his shift at the hospital. IT badge clipped to his belt, coffee mug in hand. You alive? He asked. Barely. He noticed the card, picked it up. His eyebrows rose. Harris King, as in the Harris Foundation? Apparently. Dude. He turned the card over, reading the handwritten note. How'd you land this? I hesitated. Met her on the bus. The bus? Jamal laughed. Rich people don't take the bus. This one does. Weird. He set the card down, shaking his head. Well, don't screw it up. That's real money. Like, never worry about rent again money. After he left, I sat alone in the too-quiet apartment. Rent was due in 11 days. My checking account had maybe $400. The hospital contract paid well, but invoices took forever to process. And I'd already burned through my last payment. I couldn't ignore work, even if it came from her, even if it felt like stepping into something I didn't understand. I called the number on the card. A woman answered on the second ring. Professional. Polished. Harris Foundation, how may I direct your call? Hi, this is Ethan Cole. I'm a web designer. I was told to call about a project. Oh yes, Mr. Cole. Mrs. King has been expecting you. Can you come in tomorrow? Say, 2 p.m.? I looked around my apartment, at the laundry piled in the corner, the laptop with the cracked screen, the life I was barely holding together. Yeah, I said. 2 p.m. works. The foundation office sat in a clean glass building on the edge of downtown, the kind of place where the lobby had abstract art and the elevator buttons actually worked. I felt underdressed in my thrift store blazer and jeans. The receptionist smiled at me like she dealt with nervous freelancers every day. "Mr. Cole, right this way." She led me down a hallway lined with framed photos, community events, ribbon cuttings, kids smiling at camera. And then we reached Monique's office. It was exactly what I expected. Tasteful, minimalist, large windows overlooking the city, and Monique herself sitting behind a desk that probably cost more than my rent, looking up from her laptop with the same careful expression she wore on the bus. But her eyes were different in the daylight. Still guarded, but softer somehow. "Ethan." She stood, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming." Her handshake was firm, professional. The ring on her finger caught the sunlight streaming through the window. Behind her, on a shelf, was a framed photo. Her and a man in a tuxedo, hospital gala backdrop, his arm around her waist. Both of them smiling for the camera in that practiced way that didn't quite reach their eyes. Dr. David King, I assumed. Tall, distinguished, white, the kind of handsome that came with confidence and money, and knowing exactly who you were. "Please sit." Monique gestured to the chair across from her. I sat. She closed the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said quietly, "I need to redesign the Foundation's website. Youth programs, donation portal, something modern but approachable." "Okay. And I need someone who won't ask questions about other things." I met her eyes. "Like what happened on the bus?" "Yes. I don't ask questions I don't want answered." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good." We talked logistics, timeline, budget. She quoted a rate that was higher than I would have dared ask for. "That's too much," I said. "No, it's not. Good work shouldn't be discounted just because no one put your name on a different side of the river." Something in her voice made my chest tight. She understood. She knew what it was like to be on the outside looking in, even now, surrounded by all this wealth and influence. Before I left, she walked me to the elevator. "I usually leave the hospital around 11, she said casually. "The bus from my stop, it's predictable." She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. The invitation hung in the air between us as the elevator doors closed. That night, Jamal came home from his shift, excited. "Bro, I got promoted. Specialized IT support, more money, better hours. That's amazing, right?" He grabbed a beer from the fridge. "So how'd the meeting go with the fancy foundation lady?" "Good. Landed the project." "Hell yeah." He clinked his bottle. Against my soda can. "You're moving up in the world, man." Later, after Jamal went to bed, I checked my email. One new message: Hospital Communications Department. Additional contract approved for website maintenance. Mrs. King spoke highly of your work. Please see attached scope and rate. I stared at the screen. She'd done this. Whatever influence she had, she'd used it to tie my income directly to her world, to her husband's world. I should have been grateful. I was grateful. But I also felt something else. Something heavier. Like I'd just stepped onto a path I couldn't see the end of. At 10:30, I grabbed my laptop bag and headed to the bus stop. Not my usual stop. Hers. The one outside the gated neighborhood with the marble lions. The bus arrived at 10:52. I boarded and took a seat near the back. Different from my usual spot. Marco didn't drive this early route, so the driver didn't know me. At 11:04, the doors opened at stop 12. And there she was. No panic this time, no running. Just Monique in a tailored coat, calm and poised, scanning the bus interior with those careful eyes. She saw me. Something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe, or recognition. She walked straight to my row and gestured to the empty seat beside me. "This taken?" I shook my head. She sat down. Close enough that I caught her scent again. Close enough that when the bus hit a pothole, her shoulder brushed mine. We didn't speak right away. The bus engine hummed beneath us. The fluorescent light overhead flickered, casting strange shadows. Outside, the city rolled past in streaks of neon and darkness. "Thank you," she said finally, "for the other night." "You already thanked me." "I know, but I mean it. Who was he, really?" She was quiet for a moment. "David's driver. He follows me sometimes. Not because David tells him to, but because people who work for powerful men tend to report things, even small things, especially small things. Like his wife taking the bus alone at night." "Exactly. Why do you take the bus?" She turned to look at me. "Why do you?" "Because I can't afford anything else. And I can't afford to be Mrs. King every second of every day." The honesty in her voice punched me in the chest. We talked about work, about the website, about the hospital's feedback on my previous designs. But the conversation kept drifting. To music, to favorite parts of the city at night, to the weird comfort of being anonymous in a moving metal box full of strangers. She asked about my family. I told her there wasn't much to tell. No safety net, no backup plan. Just me and Jamal splitting rent and hoping the work kept coming. She told me she'd grown up without money too. That the gated neighborhood and marble house had only come after she married David. "Do you regret it?" I asked before I could stop myself. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I regret not knowing the price before I agreed to pay it." Her bracelet clinked softly as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I noticed everything. The way her shoulders relaxed the longer we sat there. The faint circles under her eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide. The way she held her phone but never looked at it, like she was afraid of what might be on the screen. Marco's replacement, a woman named Rita, watched us in the rearview mirror but didn't say anything. When my stop came, I stood reluctantly. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night." I walked home through the cold, my breath fogging the air, replaying every sentence. When I got inside, my phone buzzed. Email from Monique. It was good to talk without pretending tonight. "Emma," I stared at that message for longer than I should have. Then I smiled in the dark hallway and went inside. The next afternoon, Monique invited me to her house to review the website in person. I almost said no, but I needed this job, and she'd made it clear this was professional. So I went. The house was exactly what I expected and nothing like I imagined. Gated entry, manicured lawn that looked like it had never seen a weed, stone facade. 3-car garage. A woman in a housekeeper's uniform let me in. The inside was huge and echoing and almost too clean. Like a showroom. Like no one actually lived there. Monique met me in the kitchen. A massive, open-plan space with marble countertops and an island that could seat 8 people. She had her laptop open. Steam rose from a mug of tea beside it. "Thanks for coming." "No problem." We leaned over the laptop together, reviewing layouts. Our arms brushed. She smelled like citrus and vanilla again, and something else. Something warm. She explained the foundation's origin, how she'd fought for certain programs while David focused on hospital PR, how charity photographs better than messy marriages. I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. She smiled. A real smile this time. Then we heard footsteps. Her entire posture changed in an instant. Shoulders straighter, voice cooler. Dr. David King came down the stairs in a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, phone pressed to his ear. He was exactly as imposing in person as I'd imagined. He barely glanced at me while finishing his call. Something about a surgical schedule. When he hung up, he finally looked at me. Really looked. His handshake was firm. Evaluating. "You're the web designer." "Yes, sir." "David," Monique said smoothly. "This is Ethan Cole. He's working on the foundation site." "And the hospital site," David added. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't frowning either, just assessing. "I've seen your work. It's good." "Thank you." He pulled up a chair, asking pointed questions about metrics and analytics and how our online presence compared to other hospitals. I answered carefully. Every word felt like a test. Monique played the role of supportive wife perfectly, nodding at the right moments, adding context when needed. But when David's back was turned, she shot me one quick look, half apology, half warning. After 20 minutes, David's phone rang again. He excused himself and headed back upstairs. The air felt different after he left. Lighter, but also heavier with everything we couldn't say. At the door, Monique's voice dropped low. "Tonight, I'll take the bus again." "You sure that's smart?" "If you have work to do, bring your laptop. We'll both be pretending to go home." I stepped out into the cold afternoon, gripping my bag tighter than necessary. Behind me, I heard the door close softly, and I wondered what the hell I was doing. That evening, I finished work at a cafe nearby and headed to the bus stop in her neighborhood. I felt out of place, surrounded by people leaving expensive restaurants, carrying shopping bags from boutiques I'd never stepped foot in. When the bus arrived, I boarded first and took our unofficial seat. 2 stops later, Monique slipped on beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. We talked quietly. About the website, about nothing. Our shoulders kept touching. Halfway through the ride, a woman boarded carrying a reusable grocery bag. Athletic wear, expensive sneakers. She had that look. Wealthy, fit, nosy. She recognized Monique immediately. Her eyes went wide, then narrowed. Then landed on me. "Monique? Oh my God, hi." Monique's smile appeared instantly, too bright. "Tasha, hey." Tasha sat down across from us, studying our closeness, the way Monique's knee was inches from mine. "I didn't know you took the bus." "Sometimes." Monique's voice was light, casual. "This is Ethan. He's the designer David hired for the hospital's new site." "Oh." Tasha's eyes stayed on me a beat too long. "Nice to meet you." We made small talk. Neighborhood events, a charity brunch, some new cafe by the gate. Tasha kept glancing between us, filing away details. "Surprised to see Mrs. King slumming it on the late bus," she said with a laugh that wasn't quite a joke. "Supporting public transport," Monique replied smoothly. When Tasha got off 2 stops later, she gave me a curious, lingering smile, like she'd just witnessed something worth remembering. After she left, Monique's shoulders tensed. "Neighbors talk," she said quietly. I realized then that this wasn't just dangerous because of David. It was dangerous because of everyone around them. All the eyes that watched without meaning to harm, but could destroy just by noticing. When we reached my stop, Marco, who was driving again tonight, caught my eye in the mirror. He gave a tiny shake of his head. Warning. I stepped off the bus, feeling like someone had just turned on all the lights in a room I thought was dark. The next night, rain hammered the city. I almost didn't go, but I brought my laptop anyway. Because I knew I'd end up on that bus, waiting. The windows streaked with water. The fluorescent lights flickered. Everything outside became smeared headlights and puddles. Monique boarded in a belted trench coat, her hair pulled back tight, a silk scarf at her throat. She slid into the seat beside me without a word. Midway through the route, Flooding ahead forced the bus to pull over. The engine changed pitch. We sat there, stranded while rain pounded the roof. "Here." Monique offered me an earbud. To pass the time. We shared a playlist, old soul tracks, mellow R&B. She leaned her head back against the seat. "No one expects anything from me here, not a report, not a smile, not a speech. Is that why you take the bus?" "Partly." She turned to look at me. "David prefers the image of our marriage to the reality. The foundation, the galas, the perfect doctor's wife. All of it photographs well. And the reality? The reality is I eat alone most nights in a kitchen that seats 8 people. The windows fogged from the warmth inside. Our arms touched through our coats. She told me about the last time she felt truly at ease. Church bus trip when I was 19, before any of this. "Where'd you go?" "Nowhere special. Just away." I thought about my answer. "Weirdly, maybe right now." She looked at me. Really looked. Neither of us said anything else. The bus finally lurched back into motion. When we reached my stop, Monique squeezed my hand once. Quick. Almost accidental. Then let go. I stood in the rain, watching the bus pull away, my palm still tingling. The next morning, I woke to an email from the hospital. Good feedback on the site mock-ups. That evening, I went back to the foundation for more work. Through open doors, I heard Monique on the phone, her voice tight. "David, I told you I have a late meeting. No, I can't just leave, because this is my work too." When she came out, she looked exhausted. "I have to leave on time today," she said. "I told him I'd be home for dinner." I assumed she wouldn't take the bus. But that night, she boarded anyway. She'd changed into jeans and a simple sweater, trying to look less conspicuous, less like Mrs. King. She sat beside me, clearly upset. "He doesn't understand why I need time alone," she said quietly. "He sees it as disrespectful to his status. To us." "Does he know about the bus?" "No. I tell him I'm staying late for foundation paperwork. Then I slip out." "You're lying to him." "I'm surviving him." She met my eyes. "He's never hit me, but his disappointment feels like punishment, and his control over my image, my social standing, it's its own kind of cage." I wanted to ask if she was afraid, but I already knew the answer. We talked about resentment and gratitude, how you could feel both toward someone who changed your life. "I'd kill for his money," I admitted, "but not his marriage." She almost smiled at that. When she got off at her stop, she paused on the sidewalk, looked back at the bus, gave me the faintest nod before disappearing into the dark neighborhood. 2 days passed without her taking the bus. I worked from home. We exchanged only short, professional emails. Then I had to go to the hospital for a meeting about the website. Jamal met me in the lobby, walking me to the conference room. The hallways were busy, clinical, full of people who barely noticed me. The department head praised the site progress. Mentioned casually, "Mrs. King has been very involved. Dr. King likes that." I felt the weight of their names. After the meeting, Jamal took me to the cafeteria for coffee. That's when I saw him. Dr. David King at a nearby table with a colleague, Dr. Patel, according to his badge. I heard fragments of conversation. David mentioning his busy wife, and how late nights can be tricky when everyone watches you. My blood went cold. Jamal introduced me to Dr. King, reminding him I was the site designer. David studied my face a moment too long, like he was searching for something he couldn't place. Then he thanked me politely and moved on. "He scans everyone for weakness," Jamal joked after David left. But I felt something deeper. That night, I sat on my usual bus seat, watching for Monique. She never boarded. When the bus passed her gated community, I spotted David's car turning in through the entrance. I watched the taillights disappear behind the gate. The next evening, Monique invited me back to her house. Around 9 p.m. this time, later. Less overlap with David's schedule. The house felt different at night. More shadows. More echo. We sat at the kitchen island again. Close, working, her bracelet tapping the counter every time she pointed at the screen. She asked personal questions between work talk. How I ended up in web design. Whether I'd ever thought about leaving this city. Whether I was seeing anyone. I dodged, feeling the danger. "Let's get some air," she said. We stepped onto the back patio. From there, I could see the neighbor's house, Tasha's place, lights on, voices faint in the distance. No one noticed us, but the proximity added weight. We went back inside when her phone buzzed. Text from David, running late at the hospital but wanted to review some things when he got home. Her jaw tightened. I started packing up. She walked me to the front door. We stood too close in the doorway, the kind of close where something could happen. Instead, she reached up and straightened my collar. Her fingers brushed my neck. Headlights swept across the foyer wall. A car in the driveway. "Go," she whispered. I walked down the path fast, passing David's car. Our eyes met through the windshield for one horrible second. Then I kept walking. My heart hammered all the way to the sidewalk. A couple hours later, I took my usual late bus home. Monique didn't board. Smart. She needed to stay home, keep David calm. A few stops after her neighborhood, a man in scrubs got on. Hospital jacket, Dr. Patel. He sat a few rows away, talking loudly on his phone about cases. I slumped in my seat, hoping he wouldn't notice me. He didn't. Not that night. 2 nights later, Monique boarded the bus again. David was working late. She'd calculated the risk. We sat together, but the tension was different. More watchful. Midway through the route, Dr. Patel boarded again. He spotted Monique immediately. Did a double take. "Mrs. King?" He smiled, walking closer. His eyes landed on me beside her. Monique reacted instantly, slid her hand under her coat to rest over mine, squeezed. "We were just talking about the hospital's new website," she said lightly, laughing like I'd told a joke. Dr. Patel joked about networking on the bus and said he should tell David he saw her. "Oh, you know David," Monique deflected. "Too busy to listen to my bus stories." After Dr. Patel got off, Monique kept her hand over mine. Her fingers trembled. "That complicates things," she whispered. I realized we'd just been seen by someone who talked to David every single day. The next evening, Jamal came home animated. "Bro, you're not going to believe the gossip from the break room today." My stomach dropped. We sat at the kitchen table with takeout. Jamal told me the story, laughing. Dr. Patel had mentioned seeing Mrs. King on the late bus sitting with some guy. Everyone thought it was harmless. Maybe a cousin, some board member's kid. But Jamal repeated it, teasingly. Imagine being that guy. David would have a stroke. I nearly choked on my food. The some guy was me. After Jamal went to bed, I spiraled, replaying every bus ride, every tiny risk. David wasn't in the room when the story was told. But rumors travel. Someone might mention it to him eventually. I drafted an email to Monique, carefully neutral, about visibility and public branding, slipped in a vague warning that people notice public routines. I hit send, then waited for a reply that never came. The next 3 nights, I rode the bus from her stop. She never boarded. First night, I told myself she was just avoiding risk. Second night, I started doubting. Third night, I saw a black SUV glide past the bus stop. In the passenger seat, Monique's profile beside David. She looked straight ahead, not at the bus. The sight drove home that she'd chosen the car. The controlled route. Not the bus, not me. I worked from home more, checked my phone constantly, looked for emails that didn't come. Then one morning, I got a message from David's assistant. The hospital site contract was paused pending internal review. No explanation, no timeline. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Over the next 4 days, I tried to fix it, called the hospital, got polite non-answers. Restructuring some initiatives. We'll keep your information on file. I emailed Monique about the foundation site, asking if we should proceed. Hours passed. No response. Jamal mentioned that David was known for cutting vendors he didn't like. I checked the foundation's website. My early changes were still live, but future work pages were blank again, like someone hit pause on my entire presence there. I rode my original bus route, avoiding her neighborhood, trying to convince myself that distance was safer. But my evenings felt empty. No tension, no waiting, no scent of citrus and vanilla, no clink of gold bracelets. I drafted several emails to Monique. One angry, one pleading, one purely professional. I deleted them all. One night, I found myself on the old late bus again, passing her neighborhood without thinking. I looked at our usual shared seat. Empty. And I realized, with dull, painful clarity, that I'd been quietly cut out of her life, for reasons that probably protected us both. A full week later, I boarded the bus from my side of town, heading back past the hospital. Almost without thinking, Tasha got on near Monique's neighborhood, recognized me after a second. "You're the hospital website guy, right?" "Yeah." She sat near me, lowering her voice. "I heard the Kings had a big argument about where Monique spends her evenings." My chest tightened. She shared bits of gossip. David had questioned Monique about her little adventures. Someone mentioned seeing her on the bus with some young guy. Tasha didn't realize she was talking to that guy. "There's Lonely," she said quietly. "And then there's King Lonely. I worry about her sometimes." I listened without revealing anything, piecing together that Monique had shut down all contact to protect me, to keep me out of David's crosshairs. Tasha got off at her stop. The bus pulled away. I looked toward the gated community entrance. For one brief second, I saw a silhouette in an upstairs window. Monique! But she turned away before I could be sure. The bus rolled on. Over the next 10 days, I tried to move on, landed a small contract designing a site for a local mechanic. The pay was minimal, but I needed it. Jamal got promoted, specialized IT support, better pay. I was happy for him. But I felt left behind. One afternoon, I went to the hospital to pick up a final check. In the lobby, I glimpsed David across the room with board members, including Monique. She looked poised, distant, navy dress, polished, smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes. I left quickly. That night, I rode my original bus. Not hers. But I couldn't stop glancing at every gated entrance, every porch light, thinking of her. Whatever we'd had wasn't friendship, wasn't an affair. It existed in some strange, undefined space that made it impossible to grieve properly. 3 evenings later, I found myself drawn back to the old late bus. I told myself it was because the mechanic's garage was closer to that route. When I reached our usual seat, I stopped. Folded neatly on the cushion was a silk scarf. Her scarf? That perfume. That pattern. On top of it, a small paper bus ticket. In her handwriting, 11:40 p.m., and below that, a different route number. I picked up the scarf, breathed in her scent, sat down, clutching ticket and scarf. For the rest of the ride, I debated. Was this meant for me? Was it safe? But the handwriting, the placement, our seat, it was clear. That night at home, I set the scarf on my pillow. propped the ticket against my alarm clock. 11:40 p.m. I set an alarm for an hour earlier. The next night, I found the new bus stop, a dimly lit corner near a small park and a 24-hour pharmacy, less polished than her neighborhood. I boarded at exactly 11:40. Different passengers, late shift workers, a young woman with a backpack. I sat in the middle, uncertain. At the second stop, nobody. Third stop, teenagers. I started to doubt. Fourth stop, I felt someone move into the row behind me. Then I caught the scent, citrus and vanilla. I was starting to think you'd decided I wasn't worth the risk. I turned. Monique sat behind me in a plain coat. No diamonds. Hair pulled back simply. Less Mrs. King, more herself. My throat tightened. You left a scarf on my bus. She smiled sadly. I was hoping you'd recognize it. The bus rolled forward into the dark. She explained in low whispers. Her behind me. Our hands occasionally meeting when I draped my arm over the seat back. After the rumor reached David, he'd demanded to see her phone. She'd had to delete everything. Every email, every trace. There was an argument, she said quietly. He accused me of being careless with our reputation. I told him I just wanted normal evenings. He said there's nothing normal about me being on a bus with strangers. The hospital contract. I know, I'm sorry. David pulled strings after the gossip reached him. I figured. I was angry at you for a while, she admitted. Not for anything you did, but because caring about your safety limited my choices. I had to protect you. I told her I'd missed the bus talks more than the money. She looked guilty. David's away at a conference for a few days. That's why I left the scarf. Why I'm here now. And when he gets back, we go quiet again. We agreed on new rules. No emails, no calls, no house visits, only bus routes David's people never used. When her stop approached, she stood, lightly tapped the back of my seat 3 times, a tiny private signal, then stepped off into the night. I watched her disappear. Over the next 7 days, we met on the new route 3 times. First night, she sat behind me. We talked about music, architecture, city history. Our hands touched when I leaned back. At one point, she rested her forehead against the seat near my shoulder. Exhausted. I sat still, feeling her closeness. Second night. The bus was crowded. We ended up side by side, kept our conversation mundane. Weather, traffic, foundation work. Our thighs brushed in the narrow seat. A stranger across from us watched with mild curiosity. Then a car similar to David's appeared, beside the bus in traffic. We both froze. It turned away, but the scare was enough. Third night. Monique nearly missed the bus, boarded out of breath, laughing. I had to wait for the house lights to look normal, so the staff wouldn't mention my absence. We talked about how many people guarded her cage without meaning to. Staff, neighbors, colleagues, all those watching eyes. We reaffirmed the rules. If David came back early, she wouldn't show. No explanation. I had to accept silence as protection, not rejection. As we approached her stop, she reached out, touched my shoulder from behind. Light, almost a blessing. I can't promise you consistency, she whispered. Only honesty about what I can't risk. The doors hissed open, and she was gone. Across the next 2 weeks, a rhythm developed. Some nights she showed, some nights I rode alone. But the pattern was clear. One night she didn't come. David had extended his trip, but she stayed home anyway, too anxious. Another night she did come, and we traded stories about our early 20s, her hustling through grad school, me dropping out of a program I couldn't afford. One night I rode alone and sketched ideas for a coding course, inspired by her foundation's youth programs. Jamal noticed my mood fluctuating, joked about a mystery woman. I dodged the topic. I picked up new clients through referrals, stabilized my finances. The hospital contract was dead, But I wasn't on the edge anymore. We never crossed physical boundaries, just touches and proximity, a shared laugh, a steadying hand when the bus braked. One night she described a gala, how bored she'd felt beside donors, watching David charm the room. I described debugging websites at 2 a.m. in a freezing apartment. The class difference stayed sharp. But on the bus, it didn't matter as much. One quiet, cozy night, as we approached my stop, I didn't want to leave. But I did. Standing on the sidewalk, I looked back through the window. Monique met my eyes, gave me a small, private smile. Then the bus moved on. The routine had become its own strange comfort. 3 days later, I had a rough day. A client ghosted on payment. My laptop was dying. I almost didn't go to the bus stop. But I did. The early stops went by without her. I told myself this might be another stretch of distance. I could live with that if it kept her safe. At a mid-route stop, I felt someone sit behind me, the soft clink of bracelets, that familiar whisper. Rough day. Monique, her voice full of warmth and exhaustion. We talked softly. David had shifted from anger to icy politeness, a different kind of punishment. She insisted she wouldn't risk anything that could blow up her life. But she refused to erase herself completely again. I told her about small wins and losses, about the course I wanted to build, about how these rides made me feel less like I was just reacting to life. As the bus neared her original neighborhood, we both looked out at the distance. Her house sat somewhere beyond the gate, porch light faintly visible. We sat in silence, hands not touching but close on the cold metal pole. The air hummed with everything unspoken, what we wouldn't do, what we couldn't admit, what we were to each other. When my stop approached, I stood slowly. Monique's hand tapped the seat back 3 times. Our signal. I stepped off the bus, watched it pull away, and in the distance, through the dark spaces between streetlights, I saw the glow of her porch light. The bus passed the edge of her world, carrying her back to the life she couldn't escape. Some people you only ever have between stops. Too close to be strangers, too dangerous to be anything else. I still ride that bus sometimes, late nights when work runs long, when the apartment feels too small, when I need the hum of the engine and the flicker of fluorescent light. And some nights, she's there, sitting behind me, or beside me, depending on how safe the world feels that week. We talk about nothing, and everything. We never cross lines we can't uncross, but we exist in that strange, unnamed space between friendship and something more, between professional and personal, between what we want and what we're allowed. David doesn't know, or maybe he does, and he's decided that this, whatever this is, isn't worth the scandal of confronting. Either way, Monique keeps her marble house and her foundation work and her carefully curated life. And I keep my cramped apartment and my freelance hustle and my late-night rides. But some nights, when the bus rolls through the dark city, we have each other, in the only place where our worlds can touch without burning down. And that's enough. It has to be. Because some people you only ever have between stops. And maybe that's the only way to have them at all. If she sat beside you, how close would you pretend to be?